Alright guys, welcome back to the podcast, Back to Gaming Compute. Headed out from the gym, Saturday evening. I think this is my favorite time to go to the gym, in all honesty, because there's really nobody there. I feel like Friday evenings, like around 5 p.m. tend to be the busiest. And then the least busy seem to be like Sunday, like maybe Sunday evenings, or I don't know what time Sunday, but there does seem to be a timing on Sunday where it's not busy, and then another timing on Saturday, like before dinner, when it's not busy, like sometime between like 3:30, 4-ish. I don't know if it's just the gyms where I go, but I feel like most people are either getting ready to go out, so they'll go earlier. And a lot of people, I think, like to, at least I do this, but I would assume other people do too. You kind of go in between meals, like you want to, get enough nourishment and energy from your food to be able to kind of get in a good workout usually, and not go like on empty pretty much. And then you also want to be able to get your protein and hydration, everything like that, like after the meal too, like kind of like a recovery snack or recovery meal. So I think people kind of time their workouts according to that too. At least I know I do that for sure. But I'm not really trying to talk too much about the gym. But yeah, at the gym, I was listening to this kind of recent episode by Graham Stephan. I think you guys know, like, I've very heavily followed his content for years. And he's someone I consider, like a role model, and in a way kind of like someone in a similar age bracket that kind of has a similar mindset, but someone who's kind of helped me kind of like develop a different approach, because I was raised in the approach of, not really thinking about trends and things, and that's kind of what I want to talk about in this episode today. Is tradition versus trends. I don't really know what to call it, but I'm not really saying one's way better than the other, but it's like, in my lifetime, as far as like adult life, I have been through now 2 recessions. Now, I don't know, people want to say, isn't this one, like, whatever you want to call it, a lot of people are suffering financially. Like, let's be real. It doesn't matter if it's labeled a recession or not. Like, people will be like, oh, it's not a recession. It's like, okay, well, it's not a recession, but people are still getting laid off work. There's a lot of inflation that we're dealing with, and a lot of, nonsense kind of going on back and forth with the housing market. And usually things going wrong with the housing market is a big indicator for there to be financial issues coming up for people. And so although people will say, no, it's not a recession, no, we're not in a recession, it doesn't meet what we're experiencing right now, doesn't meet criteria. Maybe it doesn't, but there are definitely changes in things. And mind you, I feel like, at least during my lifetime, we have not been in an economic period of distress and complications kind of paired with just ending a pandemic. Not really even ended, like it could still flare and impact the economy, and like, so there's so many layers to this one too, where it's kind of like causing a lot of confusion. And I'm not an expert on it, I just know that it's confusing to a lot of people what's going on. And in my opinion, I don't know how much it really matters. When I think about, like, the reality, I'm more interested in studying, like, the actual direct impacts, and not so much like, is it not a recession? Like, what do we call what we're experiencing right now? Like, what is this labeled? Like, it kind of doesn't seem to matter as much on the day-to-day. Like, and one thing that I was kind of gathering from Graham Stephan's recent episode, well, it wasn't really his episode, it was Ken Coleman's episode where he was interviewing Graham Stephan. I kind of was paying attention to the way, Graham Stephan kind of talks about his experiences in life, and he, he's very vocal about his methods of doing things, his opinions, all these types of things. He's very vocal about it. Like, he's not really a hush-hush kind of guy where you're like, I don't know how he got where he was. Like, when you follow his content, you kind of know his backstory a lot, and just briefly, some things that he kind of seems to have adopted in his youth that carry on into his adult work ethic, just like this idea of, like, living a frugal lifestyle, controlling kind of like impulsive spending, and having like a solid foundation and goal of like where you want your finances to go, and focusing on things like, is the time I put into certain job efforts gonna pay off, like, maybe later, or is it gonna pay off anytime soon? Is it not gonna pay off at all? Like, what does that really look like? He seems to be able to describe those experiences, and I find it very eye-opening when there's somebody who's really able to kind of speak to that, when there's somebody who's able to kind of talk about their experience of going a non-traditional route. So just briefly, for people who don't know, Graham Stephan didn't go a traditional school route, and I'm not here to like pitch do it, don't do it, kind of thing, but rather, looking at someone who's so successful, a lot of times I think what people kind of forget to think about is, experience goes a long way, right? So he has experience in making money, experience in certain things like SEO, like HTML, different types of things that he has experience in, that if he were, like sales, entrepreneurship, things like that, that in his, upbringing, if he would have just gone to school like everybody else would probably say to do, at least back then especially, and his parents seem to have wanted him to do that too, like, if he would have just gone to school, it's like, a lot of times it is right, you do learn a lot of stuff that you're never going to use. Like, you might be tempted to go into debt. And yes, I'm not saying a degree is worthless. I'm not saying I went the route of going to school and all that stuff too, but it's like, if your plan isn't like super solid, sometimes you can land in a place that, isn't ideal. Like, for example, for me, I've always had a lifestyle and culture that I was brought up in, where you kind of don't really have a lot of days where you're like lounging around, sitting around. Like, there definitely were periods of my life where I was really into television and things like that, but overall, I've usually liked to learn and explore things and gain knowledge, and that to me is entertaining, and being creative and things like that. For me, I feel like I get more out of that than just sitting and like binge watching stuff. Like, sometimes I will binge watch stuff, but it's like I do like learning, even if it is kind of like random information that I'm never going to use. I feel like I get more out of that style of things. And so, like, I don't really have much of an aversion to learning, or even, types of hobbies that are creative but tend to have this kind of tedious tasks kind of like attached to them and things like that. Like, I'm very like results oriented. Even like, I do kind of maybe have an issue with like finishing projects on occasion, but I'm definitely getting way, way, way better at that. But I'm very results oriented. I like to see the effort that I put in for a time to result in some kind of, I want to see the results of my labor, and there are some fields that, I'm very attracted to because you can kind of see every time you put in work, you're getting something out of it. Like, maybe it's not always like a massive financial benefit. Like, maybe it's not always like, oh yeah, I'm getting like richer or like gaining like a whole lot more income or something like that. Like, maybe it's not so much like that, but there are definitely times when I'm able to kind of see kind of what the scenario looks like, and be able to kind of get a little further along with it, with things, and I'm motivated by that. And when it comes to traditional, going to school, I can't really knock it, because I can say that, for me, at the very least, it's gotten my foot in the door at a lot of places. Like, people can see, they'll be like, oh, you worked at this place for like 7 years, and you've been part of this company for like almost 10 years, and like, you've got these degrees, and you've studied at certain places, and like, people don't always completely overlook that, and especially because I have been working in a field for a really long time by this point. I've been able to prove that I can do the work. But yeah, school for me didn't work out the way it was supposed to, and I'm not here to like scare people or whatever. Like, it's just, there were a lot of things I didn't know about myself, about how far I can push, when I need to take breaks, like that kind of stuff. My experience with struggle was very much so like, okay, when I start to struggle, let me just drop the other stuff that I didn't realize was like maintaining me. Like, I would do things like, because I wouldn't study Friday night or Saturday in the daytime, there's a certain point where I was like, well, let me just add more hours and just study all week long and never take any breaks, or I do things like, instead of just taking any old break or something like that, I do things like, staying up later, or, just things that were like, they seemed like they were getting me ahead, but at the same time, like, I was just wearing myself down so much to a point where it's like, I wasn't functioning at an optimal level enough to like keep my grades managed, enough to kind of like manage my life and everything in a really complex program. And so it did make things hard for me. It did make things a lot more complicated, a lot more difficult. I didn't really want to I didn't really notice it. Like, looking back, I noticed it, but I was like, okay, if I just keep pushing, things will be fine. And when they weren't fine, I was like, well, just keep pushing. Sleep less, eat worse, don't take more time to go to the gym, don't take more days or hours off in the week. And it got to a point where I was just completely burnt out and trying to like manage, getting a lot of stuff done that I literally could not manage at a certain point. Like, I literally was not able to function, and I didn't really know why. I couldn't understand, like, why. Why was it that the more I pushed, the harder things seemed to get, like, I didn't think about, hey, take a step back, take some breaks, and you need to recover, you need to refresh, you need to focus on healthy life skills as well as, the career related stuff. And, things just kind of got out of hand. But, I wouldn't say that's not a reason to, like, consider school or degrees and things like that. But it's like, I wonder how it might have gotten different for me. And ultimately, I did end up getting the job that I wanted to get anyways. Because I was interning at a place that knew my work ethic and they hired me. And then I stayed with that company for so long. And so, ultimately, I got the job I wanted. I eventually realized that, I don't really want to fully be in the field anyways. And that's why I never got licensed, because I never fully wanted to be in the field forever anyways. And so I kind of knew, eventually it was going to end for me. Like, eventually I was going to want to exit and do something else, because I had already had interest in other things. And so I was like, I don't really see myself doing this forever. And then the finance end of it wasn't ever really meeting my goal, helping me meet my goals. Like, it helped me to, like, hang out and party and stuff, but it was like I wasn't going to sacrifice my social life and my entertainment on the weekends or, like, midweek when I would go out with friends, on our weekly gathering kind of thing. And, I wouldn't want to sacrifice that just to be, like, saving extra money and, like, scrimping and, scraping together pennies and stuff. Like, I was like, screw that. I'd rather just spend the money. And I was mostly saving through retirement and things like that, and investing through that method. And, I started learning more about finance in, like, 2020 pretty much, because I was like, well, I'm not going out, so I'm not spending money, so let me see if I can actually, like, put my money in a place that makes sense, And I started making a little bit more money at that point too. And so I started actually thinking more towards, like, hey, like, I can actually create different financial goals because I have this different lifestyle now with a different income and a different work site, even though it was the same company, but a different site. So I started to think more that way. But I do know a lot of people, who went to school, got good jobs, were able to afford cars, nice apartments in nice areas of LA. But most of the people I would say I grew up with, have households that they grew up in where their parents or somebody's parents, like their spouse's parents or someone's parents, would allow them to live there. And so most of the people I know, when they want to get ahead, they'll suck it up for some years, live in a house where there's their own, they're sharing with family, and, then move or get a house or finish a degree or have a kid or whatever. Like, they do it, like, in stages instead of, like, just something happening and then just, like, I can kind of afford something, more, and then just going out on a limb and, like, buying it and then being like, oh shoot, I'm in some economic trouble. Like, I don't know too many people that live like that. Like, most of the people I know have a support background of people that don't mind them sharing housing and stuff. And so maybe that's more rare because of how I grew up culturally and the types of people I grew up around. I grew up around a lot of minority groups and definitely people whose parents and guardians did not mind them living in the house after 18 or in their 20s or during college or during grad school or those types of times. My folks are the same way. Like, nobody cares, if I live at home or not. Like, they're not, like, pushing me out the door or anything. I mean, I know there's, like, stuff that they prefer, methods that they prefer me to kind of be living like, there are things like they would like me to eat dinner with them or meals with them every single night, or they would probably like to see me more than I'd like to be interactive with them. Like, I don't really want to be that interactive with them. Like, they want to be more interactive with me than I want to be with them, but I don't want to not interact with them, if that makes sense. Just things like that, where it's just kind of like there's a little bit of like trouble understanding each other's values on that end. I'm kind of like more of like, I like to live my life pretty independently and not really involve, too many people in certain things. Like, I kind of like my space with certain stuff, and I have certain friends that I'll tell stuff to, but when it comes to like career goals and things, I don't know. I prefer to kind of keep my folks like a little at a distance. Like, I don't know. Like, they're supportive, but I kind of sometimes don't like certain input, and I kind of know their stance on a lot of things, so I just kind of keep them in the dark because I just don't want to hear anything that anybody has to say. Like, yeah, they usually say, oh yeah, that's a good idea or whatever, but I kind of don't care, if that makes sense. Like, I kind of know where I want to go with things, and I kind of don't want to, like I kind of, am pretty open with them about, like, housemates that I've had and that kind of thing, but, and just kind of how things are going, but I am not too open about, like, the day-to-day stuff, like my financial goals and where I'm spending. Like, they know that I'm into, like, listening to finance related things and all that kind of stuff, but I'm really kind of more proactive about things than they are. Like, they're kind of more like, oh, there's something that might be going on, so they want to, like, there's something that might be going on, so they feel like they want to kind of get everybody involved, and like they're very like, oh, if there's some kind of problem, like, let's involve everybody to try to work together with this thing. And I kind of don't like that. I'm kind of more like, okay, your problems are your problems, my problems are my problems. Like, if I have some kind of issue going on, if I don't really need somebody to step in, I'm not going to request it. Versus I feel like, my folks are more like, they would prefer to rely on me for certain things, where I'm just kind of like, you can do it yourself. Like, for example, if they take classes online or something, they will ask me to help them with their coursework and stuff. And it's like, no, like, like, ask your professor, like, this isn't, I don't want to be, tutoring them or whatever. Like, I'll usually send like a tutorial of how to do whatever the skills are that they're trying to learn. And I'm more like, okay, you should be able to independently figure out how to get your work done. I try not to be too, involved like that, but just stuff like that. But, I guess when it comes to, the trend related topics, you could probably notice that there's, it's just mostly, I guess, trends that you might notice, that you might kind of see somebody, just kind of in a somebody kind of trying to figure out, like, what it is that they want to do with their goals, with their trends. But yeah, I don't really know. Like, it's kind of like, that's just kind of how it goes, And I think Graham Stephan had some good points, because he's got a lot of history behind him, a lot of things that he's got, a lot of experience that he's been doing, and he's kind of noticing, the trends that are coming up with his work through YouTube are changing and shifting. The finance niche is changing and shifting, more people are educated about finance and able to kind of, in an entertaining way, kind of like talk about it. And, versus when he first started, like, he had, a certain population of people who were interested mostly to himself. And, that's changed over time. There's definitely been a lot of changes over time. A lot of, changes, a lot of, things that kind of, shift with the times. And I feel like that's something that's a little bit hard to understand when, there are fields that are like that, but it's a little different when you have a degree in something and your field starts changing and you can kind of maybe get another job in that field versus like if you're kind of relying on, understanding of trends, that can be a little difficult. I feel like it would be maybe a little more stressful. And that's something that kind of worries me more is, going a route that's not like attached to a degree. And I'm not saying that it's not that people need a degree, but that is kind of where I would get some anxiety from is like, I always feel like, well, what if I go into a field that becomes obsolete, Like that is kind of like the biggest thing that I think about is like, well, if this becomes obsolete, then, it might not be the best of jobs to consider or fields to consider or career opportunities to consider. But it might also be just kind of like something to kind of learn, some way to kind of learn about these different things that might be going on and use it as a learning experience and still be able to come out on top. Like if you can understand what's going on, a lot of times you can maybe adapt, but that is something that scares me. Is like something as simple as an algorithm can just change, like even on here with like podcasting, like Anchor had its own, podcasting ads and, it was an easy way to kind of monetize. And then in March of 2023, like no warning, just all of a sudden they're like, oh, these ads are obsolete. You can't use them anymore. You now have to become part of this ambassador program or consider using subscriptions as a way to monetize through Spotify for podcasters. And it just became this like thing. And yeah, I mean, I have no say in it. I can't just be like, oh, well, I'm going to use the ads anyways. It's like I can use them as much as I want, but nobody's going to do anything about it. Like, it doesn't do anything for me, I can still keep them there. I can keep them up, but it's like I have to adapt, to what they want me to do. YouTube was the same way. You used to be able to just monetize your channel, and now I think you have to have 1,000 followers or 1,000 views or 10,000 views or something. Like there's something that changed where it's like you can't even, like the barrier to entry is changing, even something as simple as side hustles in my area in LA, I know, and probably in San Diego too, but I haven't looked there. But yeah, food delivery, Uber Eats, Uber driving, working for like Shipt, Instacart, Grubhub, those kind of jobs, Postmates. All you had to do before is sign up for an app, do some kind of little task on the app as far as like filling out the portions you need and like upload some copies of your insurance and stuff, like just basic stuff. Then they would approve you in a couple days, send you a card or whatever, maybe a t-shirt or whatever you needed to use to do the work. And then from then on, you could just start working, and I mean, I think with Uber and Lyft, you kind of have to have like a car that's a certain age and stuff like that. And like I don't think you can use a 2-door. I think it has to be at least a 4-door. And like there's different rules, but overall, like you can even do a car lease through that type of program. And there's a lot of things like that have just changed. Like even within the last couple years, like in my lifetime, like when I look at 2019 and then I look at how things are today, like there's been a lot that's changed, with the kind of entrepreneurial kind of side hustle world. And it's not easy to just like adapt to something all of a sudden. It's like, like way back, if somebody got banned on like one of those food delivery sites, like it wouldn't be like an issue because you could just sign up for another one. But now it's like, you know, you have to be on a wait list to even be able to use some of these sites. And so just something as simple as that, as like having to be on a wait list where you can't just start working today or tomorrow, whereas before you could just work whenever you felt like starting. You could just work. So now if there's like, I think I saw some random YouTube video where some lady was like at her job and somebody at the front desk had witnessed her taking the food that got delivered to her, and I guess she had incorrectly, it seems like she was lying, but she had incorrectly put a review that, the person delivering her food didn't really actually deliver it or whatever, like they messed up or she never got her food, and so that person got banned. And, before, if you would have gotten banned from something like that, it's like, whatever, you got banned. It's not really a big issue. You can just sign up for another one. Like, yeah, it is an issue. Like, you want your money, you want things to be just, like, steady and stable. But, yeah, you could have just signed up for a different type of app and just started working for that one instead. And now it's like, if you get banned, that might be the only app that has you not on a wait list. And now you have to get on a wait list just to go on another one. And who knows how long those wait lists last. Like, I sampled it trying to see how long it lasts for me. If I sign up, and I'd already signed up in the past, and if I signed up and I think Shipt was the only one that kind of responded and said they were, putting my account back, and all I have to do is wait to get that card in the mail, but I still can't verify if my address has been changed in their system, so I don't think they're even going to send the card to the right place, and that's going to be a delay. I'm still trying to see how long it actually freaking takes for that to start back up again, but yeah, like, I mean, traditional ways of doing things aren't terrible, but they're not always a tried and true method. As things change, people are noticing, I think to some extent our society has made, getting a degree kind of almost similar to like a rite of passage. Like, Western society doesn't really have like most mainstream American Western culture doesn't tend to have a lot of rites of passages unless you're kind of like connected to a culture that does something like a quinceañera or like a debut or something like, a little more attached to a culture, versus, what do we have, like high school graduations, proms, maybe getting your driver's license, your learner's permit, like stuff like that, like little stuff. But, usually you're not throwing parties for all of it. You're not having like all your friends and family around, usually things that happen before marriage, usually it's like limited to like a few people who get invited. And graduations are one of those things that, you can kind of invite. I think for mine, I can invite up to 5 people, but you can usually get more tickets and stuff. So like, you can get like 5 people, you can get like a few people. And, usually that kind of helps you. Like, you get to the graduation uh, location, and that kind of helps you. Um, and so, yeah, like, yeah, you kind of just get where you're trying to go, and then you're supposed to get a job in that field, and then just stick in that job and retire within that career, and you know just keep working your way up. But that's not really how things look, like for people who look on the finance side. I believe like it was one of the Ramsey personalities that had mentioned, if you look just at people who have, every so often switch jobs, like it doesn't really mean switch careers, but switch jobs, people tend to get higher pay rates who don't stay in the same job forever, or stay for the same working for the same company forever. You actually get more, it actually makes more sense to do that differently. And so, and switch jobs more often. And so these are the types of things that, you're not really taught this in school. You're not really taught finance in school. Schools are changing though. They're kind of starting to incorporate more like practical life stuff. But, you're never really taught about, what your options look like. You're just told sign up, go through all these different hoops, study a lot, go into debt while studying, and hopefully you'll be able to pay it back eventually once you're actually working. And that doesn't sound like the best way to start out in life, is to be $25,000 in debt when you're starting an independence phase, in the phase of independence, or being like 100,000, 50,000, 100,000, multiple 100,000 in debt, 500,000 in debt. Like, these are like real numbers. That's like, that's a lot of money, and like, is it worth it? Most people aren't like really like jumping at paying off their student loans either. Like, the only reason I think why most people are going to pay them off is because if you have private loans, they're just going to keep coming after you. And if you have, federal loans, it's going to screw up your credit. And so basically it does kind of impact you to not make payments, but like you can technically like put payments on hold like for a very long time, to a point where the interest is going to accrue and you're going to end up owing even more of a fortune than you already owe. But it's like, going into debt isn't usually like the best of ideas. It's like you're investing in yourself. I understand that, but it's like, it's not guaranteed for everybody, because I feel like even though you might be investing in yourself, most people, when they finish college, they're not in a mindset where they're like, okay, I want to go pay off all my debt now, and that's the next focus, is pay off this debt and then get a house or whatever. Like, they're like, no, I'm done. I'm going to get a job, then I'm going to start buying all this stuff, and the debt comes secondary, maybe even way further down the line. Like, it doesn't come like as like the first thing that you're thinking to pay back. Most people don't think that way, and so that debt continues on for a lot of people for decades, and that's a lot of money, and when you're trying to start your life, or start a life with another person even, the last thing you need is to have, that kind of on your shoulders for like 20 years or something. But there's risk on any end, to be real. Like, there's risk if you follow the traditional way of doing things. There's risk if you go some other route of doing things. But yeah, when I learned about trades, I was like, yeah, trades seem to be kind of a good middle ground where it's like you get the experience, you get a form of training and education, but you also just learn the job and do the job and work your way up in the job, and you become valuable. Especially, I talk about electricians and stuff like that, but it's like there's some jobs that, you're always going to need a person to do that kind of stuff. Like, it doesn't matter how many, self checkouts there are in the store or how much AI type stuff is going around. Like, at the moment, none of it is able to just like fix your stuff when it doesn't work. If you have a sign out in front of your store that the lights are out, or like some lights in a parking lot that need to be on and fixed, or some kind of situation with your electric in your house or at your business or whatever, usually it's not going to be robots fixing that. Usually it's a person that comes in and fixes it. Now, I'm not saying that it will never turn into something else, but, where there's like some robots or AI involved in fixing things, or some remote person like doing the work. But I feel like because it gets done and it's efficient, I don't see why they wouldn't, continue to keep electricians on and different types of work like that, because you're going to have appliances in your house. You're going to have electricity that we need to use. So far, electricity isn't completely phasing out. There are a lot of people who are getting into solar and things like that, but I don't really see it getting phased out fast enough where it's like, anything related to, the field of, appliances, electric, stuff like that. Like, a lot of these trades, it might be hard physical labor at first, but it's like you can work your way up, and it's not impossible to get in a 6-figure range and in a comfortable range. And I mean, it doesn't really matter if people don't look at the jobs the same, though. Like, there is this kind of like, oh, you do work where, like, people make fun of people like, garbage collectors or like plumbers and stuff like that. Like, nobody's like necessarily like, oh, my little child wants to become a plumber. Like, I'm so proud of them. But these people make bank. Like, they make a lot of money, like, they're very well off. And so it's like, sometimes, it's like, do you want the degree because you want not just the educational side of it? Like, is it kind of like an ego boost? And if it is, that's fine, like, but it's good to be real with yourself. It's like, is the debt going to be worth the ego boost? Is the, like, for a lot of people, it's worth it, like, I want to be having this degree or show that I did this difficult program or went to this super expensive school, because it's prestigious, like, I'm not saying that that's wrong. Like, it is a way that American Western competitive society works. Like, you kind of want something that kind of puts you ahead of other people sometimes, just because it might work in your favor, because there is kind of this shallow aspect of, the economy and capitalism. Sometimes you do have to kind of play the game, but I mean, it's good to know, what you can expect. Like, I was told going into psych, okay, you can get a private practice and all this kind of stuff. And the more I started actually learning about what would that look like to have a private practice and all this kind of stuff and all the other hoops you have to jump through just to get to that point, I was like, by the time I get there, I'm not going to want to do it anymore. Like, like, I enjoyed the population I was working with. It was a struggle, but it was also rewarding, and they needed the help. Like, I'm not saying that wealthy people don't need the help either, but it was kind of like I wasn't really too motivated to really help that population of people. And, I just was like, if I'm making the choices and calling the shots, I want to do what I want to do, So, I don't know, like, it's kind of a hot topic. It's kind of a controversial conversation that kind of comes up a lot lately, but I don't think it's bad to look at. I don't think it's bad to think about. I don't see anything being like bad about it, to consider school or to not consider school. but not just doing things because, oh, my folks or my family said, or like in my area, in my neighborhood, everybody has degrees or whatever. Like, I know a lot of people who, are going into the field that I'm about to go into, that there are people I knew that were making such good money when I was even in like high school. They were working in the field that I'm going in, and I didn't really know what they meant, but I was like, wow, like this guy makes a lot of money, like he made a lot of money. I used to have a youth and then collegiate pastor, who was doing, working in the field that I want to go into, and I was just like, oh, it doesn't seem like it's a really good job, but at the same time, it's like, this guy worked ski patrol. He would go up to Bear all the time. He had a nice car. He had a nice truck. He could afford to go on trips. He and his kids and his wife were able to kind of like go do stuff, and like his wife worked too. But it's like they had a nice house and all this kind of stuff. And, he was very knowledgeable about degrees and things, and he had an interest in psychology and wanted to go into it. I never asked him why he didn't go into it, but I think it was the money. Like, there's only so much you can scale in psych. Like, you can have clients and business and stuff, but unless you start hiring out and all this other kind of stuff, like, there's only so many hours in the day and so many clients you can see. You can't shorten your sessions to see more clients. At a certain point, you can only be so efficient, because you're charging pretty much hourly or per session, and you can't really add more sessions. Even if you are in private practice, you can't have like 50 sessions a day, like, unless you're counting like some kind of groups or something like that. But just the way the billing works and everything too, like, you're paying for billable services, and usually it's per hour, like, including documentation time and session time and prep and all these kind of things. Like, at the end of the day, like, you can only scale up so much. I don't think you can, unless you have a business or like you run like a whole company, like a clinic or something, and start getting into like developing additional clinics and things like that. Like, I could see that working, but I mean, that sounds like a lot, to have to be like, I work private practice and have like when I was in school, most of my professors had private practices and they were teaching full time, and they were maybe like providing supervision. So it's like, that was the reality of it. It's like they basically had like 2 to 3 jobs, and it's like, I mean, things do get easier the more you're in one field, but like, I was like, I'm already burnt out as it is. I can't imagine trying to do more and more and more. It's, to some extent, I was like, it was worth it on some ends, and then on some other ends, I was like, I'm glad I got out, because it's not worth it to me anymore. But it got me to where I'm at, and I don't think I'm at a place where I'm, having too much of real issues. It's more like my mindset is, I'm really struggling with my mindset lately, more so than actual things going wrong. It's more like my mindset and kind of my thoughts around what could potentially go wrong, but not necessarily like these things are actually not going well. So that's kind of how that looks. I'm about to go home and have some dinner, and then I gotta study tonight. But I don't know, people are making a lot of decisions out there, and if you can take your time, it might help to take time, take your time on things and not rush through. You can still get where you're trying to go. Sometimes it just takes, taking a step back, looking at kind of what's actually going on, and kind of blocking out a little bit, like learning, but also blocking out the meme culture, blocking out the algorithms of things, blocking out just, all the kind of like, there's definitely trending topics, especially revolving around the economy and the job market and things like that. It's like whenever you see one topic about one thing, there's like 18 other channels that are saying the same thing in different wording, and then there's also like 18 other channels with opposing views. So it's like it's really hard to know what's going on. Like, it helps to take a step back and actually look at what's going on and see it with your own eyes and understand it and make more informed decisions that way. Not following along with the clickbait, you know my stance on these things. But with that, I gotta go. I think I'll attach a daily episode to the end of this one too. Alright guys, Saturday, May 6th. It's a little after 4 p.m. I am barely about to head over to the gym. So pulling out of the drive. It is hot. It is hot in here. I think it's just hot in the car though. So I got a black interior car of my car, and it's got leather. I don't know if it's real leather. I think it's real leather. I don't know. But anyways, yeah, I had a pretty good time at the gym yesterday, and as predicted, I did not sleep too good. And that's fine, sleep doesn't always come easily to me, and it doesn't always come easily, and it didn't come easily, so that's just that. Yes, people walking in the middle of the road as usual. I think people do a lot of urban hiking around this area because it is near some hilly regions, and when the weather's good, especially this time of year, there are a lot of people that seem to be like kind of hiking around, so that's good though, good for them, but yeah, so I'm just trying to stay consistent with the gym, and studying. I had a big, I'm kind of like, pressure's a little bit on, I've set some really good goals toward, I've set some really good goals toward, my timeline for things. It's kind of a little bit of pressure on because there's a bit of accountability now, because I've told a couple people what I'm doing. So because, I've kind of clued in a couple people, I think that puts a little bit more pressure on for me. I don't like this car driving so close behind me. I'm gonna let them go. They kind of let me go, but I don't like them driving so fast behind me. I'm kind of just trying to chill and drive. There's a lot of open houses this weekend. Crazy, dude. I might go check some of them out on Sunday. I don't really know. One of my friends taught me way back, like around the early college days, about, not really taught me, but like, she used to go out and look at open houses on the weekends, and she said it would really motivate her to like study hard and like, try to, work on her success and career plans and stuff. And I did notice, that does kind of help. It also helps just in general, just to get out of the freaking house more, and just get out of my own head. So I told my friend this morning, I was like, I'm literally going to have to force myself to go to the gym, which I did do. I did do. I am doing it. I'm on my way there right now. But yeah, like I predicted I was going to be up super late. I was up past 3 a.m. The last time I remember looking at my clock, it was like 3 a.m. And I did take a lot of melatonin and started getting tired around 12:30 p.m. or so. But it didn't last long. I kind of fought it a little bit and was kind of like being entertained. I got down a rabbit hole of watching this guy eating MREs. I don't know why. Like, I really like kind of cooking videos. I like that kind of video. I like these kind of like dessert videos. It's like this Korean lady, I think, that makes these kind of like beautiful desserts, and like there's not really a whole lot of talking, and they're just like eating. He talks, but it's kind of relaxing. And then there's this other type of video I like where this lady does like canning. It's like she talks about like how she, got by during a war. I think it was the war in Ukraine, like parts of the war in Ukraine, and kind of how she coped, like, and was able to kind of like get access to foods that she preferred. And one method that she used was canning her foods in like jars and things. And so she kind of makes tutorials of how to do canning and stuff. But the thing about that one is that it's not in English, and so it has subtitles in English, so I actually have to like read that one, so I don't really watch it at night. But yeah, sometimes it's just not a good idea for me to be watching stuff at night, like late like that, because I'll just literally stay up and keep watching it. Even though I was dozing off a couple times, I still was like fighting it so I could watch these stupid things. And then I was up really late, and so I was like, who cares, tomorrow's Saturday. I don't do anything Saturdays anyways, unless I'm just getting outdoors. I don't really do anything at all. So because I knew I wasn't going to do anything, I was like, well, what the heck difference does it make? I'll not do anything for a while. So I got up kind of early, not very early, but like 7:30ish, and then around 8:30, I was like, let me like start getting going. I had a what do you call it? Like a ball, like a perfect bar. I didn't eat it early in the morning. I didn't eat till like 10:30, and I wasn't really even hydrating either. But yeah, and then I ate it at like 10:30 or so, and then kind of hit the spot. It's like 330 calories, and it's got protein. I don't really know the sugar content, but it's good, like when you really don't want to cook, and it's like, it's a good kind of like healthy enough-ish kind of thing, if that makes sense. It's like, it's not like pure health food, but it's not so unhealthy that it's like, wrecking my goals or anything. So, I'll still eat stuff like that. And I didn't have like a full like nutritious meal early in the morning or anything, but I did get off my schedule today a little bit for the morning, but I feel like that was good enough. And then I ate some junk. I ate like just like an Ichiban instant ramen, and I ate a like an organic vegan, no, not vegan, I don't know if it's vegan, it might be vegan. It was just an organic burrito, bean and cheese burrito from Sprouts, from the frozen section. I kind of keep those on stock because they're cheap. They're like under $3, and like they're like 300 something calories. So I had like it's like about 700-800 calories, adding to that maybe like about 330 calories before that. So let's say about 750-ish calories. No, that math is way off. Probably close to like 1,000 calories in all honesty, or just like within like a 2-hour period or so. And then I kind of just knocked out and took a nap. I don't remember if it was 30 minutes or an hour, but I kind of napped for a little while there, and that was nice. It helped. But yeah, I forgot to mention I did get stoned in the morning. I was like, it's 7:30. I don't really care, like, because I was gonna try to sleep more anyways. So I was like, it doesn't really make a difference if I go get stoned. So I basically got stoned, and just got stoned and chilled basically, and watched videos, dozed off. The only thing I don't like about getting stoned early is that it's really hard to kind of get the energy rolling after that. Like, by the time it was like, 2:45, nearing, I think around 2:45 I started having some C4, but I was thinking about it around 1:30 and just was waiting, and then I was like, okay, let me just do it. So I was careful with it. I didn't want to have a lot, but it doesn't take a lot. And then, so I had some C4. It's a pre-workout that I talk about all the time that I use. I never take the full 200 milligrams worth of caffeine, full scoop, but I took enough of it that it kind of got my energy up a little bit after I add a little bit more from what I originally had taken. And so I basically was like, well, let me just do yoga at home. I got in some yoga and stretching for like 30 minutes while I was kind of letting this pre-workout supplement kind of like settle. And then, because it does have to settle a little bit, like, it kind of, for a lot of people, it kind of like activates maybe their stomach, and kind of like, it kind of makes you go to the bathroom. And so I kind of like to get that out of the way before I leave the house, if possible, because it's just more comfortable. Like, I'm not a big fan of like public toilet number twos. Like, I'll do it if it needs to happen, but it's like, if I'm home and I can do it before I leave, I might as well just do it before I leave. And I'm a little off too. Like, usually that would be something that happens before breakfast, but because I didn't get up and have coffee or anything like that, it just, my day is just not a normal day. But I'm like, okay, I'll give myself today to kind of act weird, do strange stuff. I'm debating if tonight I'll go study at the coffee shop or if I'm going to stay home and study. I might actually go to the coffee shop and study because that's what I'm kind of actually motivated to do. So I might just do that. But I don't know. It's easy to say when I have like C4 in my system. It's easy to be like, oh yeah, I want to go do this. And then by the time it's night, like, I'm not going to be studying till like maybe a little after 7:45 p.m. because of the sunset time. So, I've still got a few hours to kind of screw around. So I don't really know. Like, I don't really know for sure what I'm going to do. But I do need to study, though. I've got a practice exam. I might postpone the Sunday one and make my practice exam on Monday. I'd feel more comfortable about that. I'm not trying to stall. It's just, I want this practice exam to not be like a practice. I want it to be like a real legit thing. So I want to take it a little more seriously. The one I did this past week, I didn't really take it seriously. I just kind of wanted to see what it was like and to see kind of like the feel of it, just dip my toe in the water but not really take it seriously. Like you're not even supposed to get up and go to the bathroom or like leave your desk or anything before that. And I was kind of like, I took it to TMI, but like I took it at a time when I needed to use the restroom. And so I was like, like I already knew, I was like doing it, but like not doing it, if that makes sense. But that's what practice tests are for. It gave me a little bit more comfort with like, realizing what I know, what I don't know as well, what I need to kind of get better at describing. And I think yesterday, like Friday, I didn't do too much studying after doing that exam. I didn't really get back to studying too much like I thought I was going to do. So I think I need like a solid 2 days to prepare. And just preparing tonight wouldn't be maybe enough to take a practice exam for real tomorrow. Like, I don't feel like that would be enough for me. But yeah, that's basically all I'm kind of dealing with. Otherwise, I'm just kind of enjoying myself, enjoying the weekend, enjoying the good weather, enjoying that things are going smoothly. It's just a lot of upcoming change. Just trying to keep positive about it and get out of my head about all the negativity about what can go wrong, and oh my gosh, it's like none of it's going to be the end of the world. So I do think it's still going to be possible to maybe take this practice exam before I go to Vegas, and then Vegas will be a nice buffer because I'll either be celebrating doing well on the exam, or I'll be drowning my sorrows because it didn't go well. Either way, I'm comfortable with either of those. So yeah, I don't really know though. I'm still kind of trying to figure it out, like, I want to park over here in the shade actually. Yeah, so yeah, I'm gonna step into the gym in a little bit, then probably go do a little bit of podcasting. I don't want to spend too much time podcasting this evening, but I'll spend a little bit of time getting some podcasting done, and then kind of get on with my night. Get busy with my night, nothing fancy, no dates, no nothing. Just kind of chilling, guys. But yeah, I just feel better when I'm just like doing what I need to be doing, like, so yeah, today feels pretty good. Like, I didn't really do a whole lot, but that's the whole thing. Like, Saturdays I don't do a whole lot, and unless I really have solid plans, I'm not doing anything anyways today. So, like, I didn't have plans with anybody, so I don't need to be like hard on myself to push. Like, I can give myself a day to, give myself permission to just kind of like slack off and not be productive. I think that's perfectly fine. But it is hard to think like that because I think society doesn't really teach that. And even though I grew up in a culture that kind of talks about lifestyle balance and everything, it's still hard to do because looking around, it's like, Southern California, there's a lot of competition in ways like I'm not saying I'm like trying to be better than any specific person or whatever, but it's like just the cost of living to have your independence is such a situation out here. Like, I know what I want, and getting there takes a lot of mental strength and a lot of, just pushing and I'm not saying other states aren't like that, but it's a unique area of the world to live in, because you can't just usually graduate high school and then just like move out, like you kind of have to have a certain level of success or income or whatever you want to call it, financial stability to kind of make it work in a way where you're not like utilizing debt to your detriment and like getting into like unhealthy financial habits. But yeah, I listen to the Ken Coleman show and stuff sometimes. I'll probably listen to that at the gym. Otherwise I need to get the freak in there and get to work. So alright guys, with that, thanks for listening.